It's time to go over Keith Sanchez's wide receiver big board. How did the top 10 wide receiver rank? Is Keon Coleman over Rome Odunze? We're going to tell you next on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. Guys, I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. And as always, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I got to kick this introduction over to my brother, my partner in crime, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, man, and here to bring you what championship level content surrounding the NFL draft 24/7, 365, and what the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, where we talk everything college football, we talk everything NFL football, and like we like to say, it all starts with the NFL draft. With DP, man, you on the hot seat, right, with your running back rankings, and now I'm on the hot seat with my wide receiver rankings. So today's show, man, we're simply going wide receiver rankings 1 through 10. We're going to talk about where I have them ranked, the why, and will there be inflection points, right? Does 40 times matter with some of these guys or where I have them, and, just really break down these prospects. So get prepared to have a fun show as we talk about the playmakers, the wide receivers. But DP, before we get into that, man, let me hit them with a title sponsor.
LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Keith Sanchez's top 10 wide receivers, that big board. All right, we starting the new year off with a bang now. So number one, I think, Keith, we all know Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. Number two, your guy from LSU, your fellow Tiger, Malik Nabers. Wide receiver from LSU, Malik Nabers at number 2. Number 3, we have Rome Odunze, wide receiver from Washington. And at number 4, we have wide receiver from Florida State, Keon Coleman. Keith, this is kind of, I think these are the big 4, right? I don't even think that's really much debate to it. I don't think anybody else is in that discussion for that big 4 at wide receiver. And I think the way it shook out is the way it kind of shakes out for a lot of people, Keith. But I want to talk about Keon Coleman for a second. It seems like he's lost some of his luster, right? Where you think about the Clemson game, and he's out there mossing and win, basically won the game. That was a game-winning touchdown, right? The ball, the body control, the catch radius. I remember watching them against Kalen Carson, cornerback from Wake Forest, and that was just a very fun battle between two high-level players and two competitive guys. But Keith, in your opinion, I've seen crazy things when it comes down to Keon Coleman. People are like, man, I don't know, he's wide receiver 5 or 6. They worry about his speed. I've seen N'Keal Harry comps. Keith, talk to us. Talk to the family. Why are you still so high on Keon Coleman when it seems like people are trying to sleep on my man?
Yeah, I'll start this conversation by saying, DP, I am not done with Keon Coleman to the fact of I don't know if he's going to stay at wide receiver 4 in the sense of the fact of I may move him up, DP. He may climb up my board. And the reason is this. I want everybody to think about this, man. And we can't do this in scouting, right? It can't be an out of sight, out of mind type situation, right? To where obviously we know how Keon Coleman's season ended with Florida State getting blown out by Georgia, right? Which he didn't play. But then previous that, right? They lost Jordan Travis. So obviously his numbers, his production is going to factor into that, right? He's not going to have the same production. And that's why I always say, man, go cut the film on, grade the prospect and what the prospect looks like, right? And what I see, this is simply what I see, DP. I see a guy that's listed at 6'4", 215 pounds, right? I see short area quickness. I see a guy that's difficult to bring down, that has run after the catch ability, can run through arm tackles, is a physical player. I see a guy that is excellent at the catch point. DP, you're talking about 50-50 balls. He probably has maybe some of the best contested catches in this entire draft class, DP. I see a guy that in moments, right, we talk about against LSU with his first ever game playing with Florida State. I think, was it Louisville also? I can't remember. Showed ability to turn into a big plays, right? Like get across the middle of the field, break a tackle, and he takes that thing for the distance. So I'm not done with Keon Coleman by far. And I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit, right? Because to be completely honest, and I'm about to ruffle a little, fellas, and I know people are going to say, Keith, you are crazy, right? He almost didn't finish behind Rome Odunze. I almost put Keon Coleman in front of Rome Odunze. And the reason at this moment was this, that, and that's with these first four, this is why I want to park the conversation, DP, is that I had questions with, I was trying to figure out what is Rome's athletic profile also. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think with those two guys, because they're both bigger wide receivers, right? They're both 6'3", 215 pounds, somewhere in there, right? 6'3", 6'4", 215, 210, whatever. But it looks like Rome, in my opinion, DP, is a route runner and tempo guy to get open. I don't necessarily know if I just see a guy that is just explosive vertically and running past people either. So and I'm gonna say this too. The 40 time. The 40 time is going to be big for both of these guys. Who's the more explosive athlete of the combine period? The vertical jump, right? The short shuttles that they have to do. That's going to be a huge inflection point for me, DP, for both of these guys, because I can see where people may have questions with both players, right? But you can't, the talent is undeniable. They're both extremely talented football players. But like I said, with the Keon Coleman situation, DP, I don't want to sit there and just have the out of sight, out of mind situation to where when he was jumping over people against Clemson, we were like, oh, he could potentially be the best wide receiver. And then he didn't have the production down the stretch. So it's like, oh no, he can't play football at all. It's like we can't swing the pendulum that far, right? Like he didn't just forget how to go catch that 50-50 ball.
No, Keith, and I think that's the thing, and it's just, I think when it comes down to those two guys, like you said, the 40 time is going to be big, right? And it's going to be, all right, where do you land? I think for me with Rome, like you said, he's a route runner, he's a tempo guy, so smooth, silky smooth in terms of his movements and knowing how to generate and create separation. You know, he has a track background, and I think in the 100, he was like a 10-6 guy coming out of high school, if I remember correctly. Okay. So, like, but I think with him, the reason why he's not a 10-3 guy is because he's more of a build-up speed guy. You know what I mean? He gets to that 40, 50 meters, and then that stride can open up, and he can kind of start to separate. You know what I mean? I don't think, like you said, his speed isn't immediate. He's not twitchy and explosive out the blocks, but he has the speed to separate down the field.
Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of at, DP, with that, because that's the part I kind of struggle with Rome. Like I do agree with you, he's more of a build-up speed guy, and I just thought about, man, if you put the Jair Alexanders, right, if you put the Stephon Gilmores, if you put the Derek Stingleys in front of them, then what, right? Because if you don't get started fast against those guys, I don't know when you're going to get started, right? But you have to look at the other side of the fence, DP, is that, and well, with Keon Coleman, I think Keon Coleman is a more sudden guy. I think he does have that start-stop ability, and I think it's immediately in his release, right? But the other side of that, too, is we watch a Puka Nacua, we watch a Cooper Kupp, right? We watch some of these other wide receivers that, to the way NFL offenses are designed now, with the motions, with the stack sets, with the bunches, right? To where these guys are not getting hands on, the cornerbacks can't get hands on immediately. You don't necessarily have to worry about it as much because you're not dealing with as much static alignment wide receivers. But man, this what you got to say?
No, I was going to ask you. I'm going to say you can finish your thought, but I wanted to ask you before we transition. I wanted to get, like, is the gap between Malik Nabers and Rome and Keon, is it big for you? Or is it kind of it's just decent? You know what I mean?
No, to be honest, DP, I think Malik he profiles as the more explosive, right? When you cut his film 100%. On, he has the most explosiveness. But no, it's just a matter of, man, getting these guys to the combine. I think the 2, 3, and 4, I think everybody can make an argument for every player at 2,
Agreed.
3, and 4. I think it shouldn't be shut. I don't want it to be shut, DP. That's part of this process, right? Is going through the process because we've watched the film, right? And probably going to jump into the film one more time as we go through this process and still have, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, the pro days, things like that to kind of really get this all shuffled out. And then we still have to factor in, DP, in which we'll do a really good job post-draft, right? Is who goes to the best situation.
100%. And I wanted to get that from you, Keith, because me right now, Rome is my wide receiver too, but Malik is right there behind him, and then it's Keon. So it's like between now and the draft, this thing could shake out 4 different ways, Keith. So I'm excited just for this process to continue, but I'm really excited to get into your rankings and get your whole thought process behind it all, man.
Yep, with DP, let's keep going, man. We having these really dope conversations when in discussing these wide receiver rankings, man. This is the first time we either one of us has revealed our wide receiver rankings. So I want to keep going, man. I want to get into my wide receiver rankings 5 through 7.
At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn knows that your success depends all on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Guys, LinkedIn is not just another job board, okay? Let's get that out the way. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. It is also why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Went through the first 4, Keith, guys. Now at number 5, we have a Dame's Dude original, Xavier Legette, wide receiver from South Carolina. At number 6, out of Texas, Adonai Mitchell. And at number 7, Oregon's Troy Franklin. Keith, let me tell you something, man. You a man after my own heart, brother, because the CX man up at 5. You know what I mean? It makes me happy, Keith, because I want to know I'm not on this island by myself. You know what I'm saying? Like going into the Senior Bowl in 2 weeks and into this loaded wide receiver group, I think this is so interesting because wide receiver 5, 6, and 7, it's just a jumbo group of guys right now where you kind of got to go through game, each game and kind of pick apart to figure out, all right, and again, of course, it's all preference too. How does this thing shake out? So for people who are, and I know when people see this, one of the first questions they're going to ask, why is Xavier Legette over Troy Franklin for you?
Yeah, and let's get into it, right? And the situation is that we are underrating what Xavier Legette is, right? And it's more of the out of sight, out of mind situation. I want to remind people, just like Keon Coleman, because this is the thing, is that we have to apply these things to all of these wide receivers, right? That we gave credit for Rome Odunze and saying he's a punt returner, right? And then go to the number 4 wide receiver. Keon Coleman returned multiple punts. He returned multiple. He participates in that element of the game also and is really good at it. And then Xavier Legette, some of Xavier Legette's first highlights as a South Carolina Gamecock is kick return, right? So you see the explosiveness, man. You're talking about, he's listed at 6'3" DP, and we talked about it maybe 6'2 and a half, 6'2", but just to be that 215-pound presence, right? And this is a guy that can play X wide receiver. He can handle press with ease. He's physically stacked. He's built, right? He can run through wide receivers. He's great run after the catch ability. So I just look at it and sometimes I look at these guys, DP, and obviously, we have smaller wide receivers, right? You have your Malik Nabers, you have your Garrett Wilson, you have your Chris Olaves, right? But then the other side of that pendulum is these big physical guys, right, that are unstoppable. Your A.J. Browns, your D.K. Metcalfs, right? These guys that have the Amari Coopers, right? That when they're going and the mismatch is when the mismatch, the matchup is not in your favor, there's nothing you can do about it, right? If you don't have a DB to match up with them, you can call the game over, right? And they just have the ability to win multiple ways. And I think that's what the upside is for Xavier Legette. And like I said, I put him at 5. This is my statement of, like I said, I'm getting rid of, starting early on this, getting rid of the out of sight, out of mind situation, right? With let's go with the guys that we last seen play in the playoffs, or that the maybe potentially quote unquote mainstream media is highlighting. It's like, let's get in and actually evaluate these draft prospects.
100%. I think for me, I gave both of Xavier Legette and Troy Franklin like a high second round grade, but I have Xavier Legette, excuse me, rated higher, and the reason why is because the strength, the power, the ability to fight through contact, the ability to just bounce off of would-be tacklers. But not only that, these are two different guys when it comes to the tracking the ball and making the play. Where Troy Franklin is more of a look over the shoulder, wait for it to fall out of the sky, right? He's going to meet the rainbow at the end of the rainbow. That's the type of receiver he's going to be. He gets to the spot with ease of his speed, but he doesn't go up and get the football, right? So you think about playing a Derek Stingley. If you assume that you're going to be able to wait for the ball to come out of the air on the 50-yard deep shot on the post, good luck. Because this is a guy who I remember his last year or so, they talked about him potentially at LSU, potentially playing both sides of the ball. He's got ball skills, so he will go up and take it from you. What you need to do is be proactive and be like Xavier Legette and go up and attack the ball at its highest point. I think he's probably going. I think he's going to jump higher. You know what I mean? In terms of the vert, I think he'll jump further in like the broad jump. But I think it's like I said, we get to the combine, we had that discussion then. But just the physicality that Xavier Legette brings to the wide receiver position that I'm not going to get from Troy Franklin, right? Troy Franklin's a good route runner. He has a good release package. I think his hands are good, but I feel like Legette's hands are better. And again, a guy that is so untapped as a route runner, like even though he is listed at 6'1" to 6'3", we don't know the official measurement yet until we get to Mobile. Being 220 plus pounds and still be able to sink and drop his hips the way he can to get in and out of breaks, like that's different, man. So for me, it's just like this young man has so much more growth to make where I think he could be a really high-end wide receiver. Now, I feel the same way about Troy. I think he could be a high-end wide receiver, but I think he's more so going to be a guy that's going to live in the deep portions of the field with the right quarterback where, you know what I mean, you get them isolated, one-on-ones and stuff like that. I just don't see a guy that consistently just wins through contact. And that bothers me because even if guys can't get their hands on you at the line of scrimmage, they can absolutely play chest to chest and attack the ball at the highest point with you. And if you can't make those plays and come down with it, I got problems with that.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. That's why I say
especially at 6'3". Troy Franklin,
right.
he ain't Tank Dell at 5'8", 5'9", 5'10". You 6'3", brother. I need you to play to that height and that arm length.
Yep, no, and I want to wrap up this portion of the segment, DP, real quick. Just highlighting AD Mitchell, man. And this is the thing. I think AD Mitchell, if I look at these wide receivers, right, and you talking about comping them to their peers, I think he wins in a similar way that Rome wins, right? And not the same eclipse, like at the same facet, right, or the same tempo. But you're talking about these savvy route runners, right? That they're double moving guys. They have that rocker step at the top of the stem, right? It's the head nods, it's the arms, right? It's very nuanced route running, and they understand it, right? And that's what I get from AD Mitchell too. And I'm not saying that he should be in that top tier. I'm not saying that. I think he's potentially a tier below that, right? But you're getting some good value with the wide receiver. And it's something that DP, when I initially watched him, I looked at his athletic ability, right? How does he get open? How does he separate things like that? Then as you continue watching him through the season, you appreciate the fact of the IQ part, right? That I understand how to get open. And as we say, you liken him to some of these wide receivers that, hey, maybe they're not going to wow you with the 4.4s or anything like that, right? But man, you see them in their ability to get vertical. Like I think even the game was that Kansas State or BYU, man, he had a vertical shot. I think Malik Murphy was playing, right? Beautiful football. He just beat the defender, right? So this is another high-end, high-level guy that I think at Texas, 1 year production, I do believe, DP, that he's just starting to scratch the surface. We seen him in a playoff game when he was able to go up and go get that football, right? And it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, he got it, right? And that's some of the things that he's able to offer. So, yeah, AD Mitchell, man, is another guy that has consistently risen up my position rankings, right? My wide receiver rankings because of what he can do from, I would say, from the shoulders up. I think he just simply understands how to play the game of football. But DP, that's wrapping up 1 through 7, right? I want to finish this thing off, man, because I have some rather intriguing names when it comes 8 through 10. We're going to have some really good conversations about some guys because it's going to be a player there that everybody's going to be like, wait, hold on. Why is he much higher? So stay tuned, man, as we get into these wide receiver rankings.
Guys, we wrapped up Christmas. We've wrapped up the NFL regular season. And now within the playoffs means that there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed when they place a $5 bet. Listen to me. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when they place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use. And guys, there's so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and so much more. So all you need to do is this. Go and visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet a layup. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet a layup because FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. I know we come to sports to escape some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk just for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin in a time where there's so many different viral infections going around at the moment. I can imagine a more helpless feeling than if my wife, my son, some of my best friends, anyone I loved got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial infections, including respiratory infections, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us, guys. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use the offer code locked on to get $20 off your order. Let's close this thing out. Let's bring it home, Keith. At number 8, you have another LSU Bengal Tiger, Brian Thomas Jr. At number 8, you have Xavier Worthy, the running mate to Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. And at number 10, we have the lone Georgia Bulldog, Ladd McConkey. Keith, I think where I would like to start is Brian Thomas Jr., man, a guy that seems to be rising up draft boards. Talk to the people. I listen. I know what I think about him. Big, athletic, vertical threat, great ball skills, but kind of tell the people why he's right here where he is. And some people might ask, Keith, why isn't he higher?
Yeah, so I'm gonna start with this, right? Because I can talk about what I see on film. But I know people like numbers and stats to put things into context. And I put him at wide receiver 8, and this was before this guy. I'm about to read a tweet. This is before this guy tweeted this out. And obviously we have our scouting meetings, DP, with the Draft Network. And in my scouting profile, I talked about this, right? I talked about the fact that he's a vertical guy. He runs a lot of vertical routes. It appears that he runs some of the same routes over and over and over again. The speed is evident, right? But it's a lot of free access releases, meaning that there's not a corner immediately in his face. So just like we talked about potentially with Rome, right? Brian Thomas is a build-up speed guy. But the problem is this, that with Rome, you see him work the intermediate portions of the field. You see him on end breakers, right? Brian Thomas is strictly on the outside. It's goes, it's hitches, it's curls. And that was my conversation with you guys a couple weeks ago, right? About Brian Thomas. But you know, I watched the film and I lean on the film more than I lean on stats. But I was on Twitter a couple of days ago and I decided to save this tweet because I wanted to talk about this and to help people put this and contextualize it, because I know sometimes numbers are easier to kind of digest. Our guy Brett Coleman, man, he tweeted out, he said that this stat sounds completely made up. He said, but 66% of all routes run by Brian Thomas Jr. were either go routes, curls, or hitches. 41% were just curls or hitches. So 66%, that's 2/3, right? So that's 7 out of 10 routes almost. almost 7 out of 10 routes, DP, 70% of the time, you're running on a vertical plane, meaning that you're running straight forward or you're running and stopping, right? Because to be completely honest, ain't that much difference between a curl and a hitch, right?
No,
so
it's really not.
So I wanted to have it like, and that's why I wanted to put this conversation, DP, was that's what I seen on film, right? And I wanted to put the stats behind it because I want to say, hey, this is the larger conversation, and stay with me, Locked On Family, right? Our everyday is. This is a conversation that nobody's talking about, right? Like that's not realistic to take a guy in the top 10, top 15, and he's only going to run 3 routes for you, right? Yeah. And you see it on film. Go back to the Alabama game. What did Alabama do? Alabama, I think Brian Thomas, and I talked about the variance in production, right? It'll be some games where he goes 8 catches for 200 yards, right? Then he'll go some games 3 catches for 50 yards, right? There needs to be consistency if you're asking me from a wide receiver. One, does he have the potential to do it? Yes, but there is a conversation about putting him at wide receiver 3, and there are other elements to his game that needs to be developed. And as we talk about 7 out of 10 routes is straight line.
Shout out to Brett, man. He's always dropping nuggets about numbers and time and bringing that analytics to it. Stuff that's like the deeper dive of analytics, right? Not just a box score, but like to hear that number, Keith, 66%. That's a high number.
Yeah, and that's why. And DP, we talked about it in our scouting meeting, right? And I told you, I was like, I don't know. It looked like this guy runs on a vertical plane a lot. But like you said, to add the numbers, and I seen the shock factor on your face, DP, when you actually seen the number, right? And that's what I want to convey to our everydayers is, yes, that is a high clip. It's one thing to just say I see it on film, but just to know that almost 7 out of every 10 routes are the same route.
Man, when the numbers and the film match up, there's no better marriage in the game, baby. When the numbers and film match up, Keith, and I think that's a big thing because that's why I don't have them, because I'll have my rankings within the next, probably a week or two, on the draftnetwork.com as well. But that's why I won't have them that high because, Keith, at the end of the day, like I need to see you win in the intermediate portion of the field, and because it depends on how high am I going to draft you. Do I view you as a wide receiver 1? Do I view you as a wide receiver 2? Or are you more of a specialty case? You know what I mean? Where you're just the deep threat. That kind of is he a bigger Brandon Cooks? Where Brandon Cooks didn't run a ton of routes, especially early on. It was a lot of goals, post, curls, and hitches. Same thing.
I've seen DP the comp I've seen, and it's another LSU wide receiver is DJ Chark.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of I've seen that a decent amount, and I don't mind it. Don't quote me on that. I'm not saying to that comp, but I really don't mind that comp at all. But yeah, man, and I want to wrap this up by just mentioning 2 other guys real quick, man. Xavier Worthy, vertical threat. The only thing is the consistent with the hands, and this is a guy that can move from 9 to 5 because I think he is the most explosive wide receiver in this class. If you watch the Oklahoma State game, quick screen, he took that quick screen and he just ran. Yeah, he ran past people, just flat out ran past people. And then wrapping this thing up with Ladd McConkey from Georgia. Yes, Georgia has a wide receiver. Check him out. He does all the details. He does all the good things. He does things the right way. And I just think he's going to be a productive player in the NFL. Yeah, there you go. Another Dames dude, man. I think I got two, maybe 3 Dames dudes on here. So it's sprinkled in there, DP. I tried to show love.
3 because Rome. 3.
Yeah, Rome. That's why I say Rome. That's why I threw in Rome too. But man, yeah, that wraps up my wide receiver rankings. Man, we're talking about 1 through 10. And like I'm gonna say, man, this process, right, is a situation that we're gonna keep fluid, right? As long as we get these different data points, we're gonna keep this thing going and keeping it flowing.
No, like Keith, listen. It was fun kind of going through, getting the experts analysis on why the top 10 wide receiver rankings kind of fell into, went the way it went. And so I definitely appreciate that, Keith. And like I said, man, we went through running backs, wide receivers. We're going to have corners. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming up. But, later on this week, we might have a surprise episode with a Mr. Jim Nagy for you guys. So it's a lot coming down the pipeline. We're getting ready for the Senior Bowl, baby.
Yep, man. And I want to wrap this show up by saying, man, shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Yes, like I said, man, if you haven't hit the like button, go hit the like button. If you haven't commented, drop your top 10 wide receivers, right? If you disagree or you agree, go ahead and comment, man. Talk to us because we like to talk back, man. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, man. This is the best draft content that you will find out there in the draft sphere, man. I almost messed that word up, DP. It kind of is a little tricky. It almost got to me. But, man, listen, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there, man. My guy, Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always like to say, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Listen, on tomorrow's show, we're going to get into J.J. McCarthy, quarterback from Michigan. We asked, was he ready for the NFL? Well, he said, I am, and he declared to go to the NFL draft. So we're going to talk about that and where his draft stock will look like. I'm getting into the film tonight. We're going to have all that conversation on tomorrow's show. So listen, come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.